Hello, welcome to Point Counterpoint, the 46360 show. Today is our March 3rd, 2018 show. The opinions expressed by the show's host, myself, Dwayne Perry, and Anthony Tony Hendricks, will many times conflict. Thus the title, Point Counterpoint. Point Counterpoint is a weekly issue show for our area. Point Counterpoint always lets you judge for yourself. We live in an information free-for-all. It's hard to see through all the misinformation and get to the accurate facts, what is right and best for our community. We will not libel, discriminate, or disrespect anyone or their views. We believe in the constitutional First Amendment, right of free speech, and we support anyone who voices their opinion as part of their duty to their community. This program brings you just that, an unedited, honest, candid discussion of facts. The producers of Point Counterpoint are solely responsible for the content of the show, but because the show is not rehearsed, we take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by our guests or for the information they gather from public sources. We will adhere to all applicable federal, state, and local regulations concerning limits of public speech and program content. The intent of this show is to thoroughly research current issues that affect our community, present the facts surrounding the issues, discuss the pros and cons, and then to our viewing audience what we, together or individually, feel is the best solution for both the community and the public. Point Counterpoint 46360 show is a property of its producers, Dwayne Perry and Anthony Tony Hendricks, and may not be rebroadcast without the written permission of its producers. The producers take no responsibility for the opinions of others in the postings of comments in chat rooms, blogs, video logs, forum posts, or other media. We welcome and encourage ideas and suggestions for the show. We can be reached at 46360show@excite.com. Our shows will air on Comcast Cable Access and will be rebroadcast by us on YouTube under the label Point Counterpoint 46360 show. Again, welcome to Point Counterpoint 46360 show, brought to you by Dwayne Perry and Anthony Tony Hendricks. We hope you enjoy the topics, our discussion, and the show. Well, let's get started, Tony. What do we have on our agenda for today?
Well, today we're going to go a little way from the agenda. Usually it's 5 topics, 10 minutes long. We want to talk about the Supreme Court, Indiana Supreme Court ruling on the lakefront, and in that we want to talk about sand and the lakefront and what happens down at Trail Creek, and a little bit of Long Beach, and a little bit of Beverly Shores, Stop 2, lots of things. So that might take a little longer. And Scott P. last bill about sand.
His last bill in the House of Representatives that says that companies may continue to dredge sand out of the lake for whatever reason, but that sand needs to be deposited on the shoreline to help control the erosion.
And then, if we have time, because it might take a long time, we want to talk about Crown Point's new police station, City Hall. I want to talk a little bit about the boulevard if we can. I want to bring up the list. But first, I was going to put it at the back end here, Dwayne, but first, and we said we're going to do this every week, so we should do it. Coming again on the boulevard a lot. Came in and people were crossing the street. So we're going to talk about safety again, because I was right there at the boulevard at Risky. People across the street, they push the button and the light turns so they can walk across the street, a couple across the street. And I didn't notice it till then that when we redid the boulevard, Michigan City did that, and we put those pedestrian crossings in by the islands, they have signs say pedestrian. They're not flashing signs, but they're signs that say pedestrian crossing, they have an arrow, people are going to walk. I was looking at signs at the intersections. I didn't see any. So we didn't add signs. We only added signs at the crosswalks and the planter islands, but not at the streets where people...
At the corners.
Yeah, at the corner where people push the button.
We had 2 streets intersecting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was looking, I was like, oh, well, I never noticed that till I was driving down, and I'm thinking, so I started looking, and I didn't see any. I remember seeing the ones at the crossings by the planters. They had a person, and they show the yellow sign, they show the arrow. So I want to move. I guess we'll start right with that because again, we're gonna keep on it. It's nice out. It's beautiful out today. It's going to be beautiful out tomorrow. The kids are out playing. people aren't walking around, and still, we don't have the study or whatever we're working on or the committee to stripe the crossings and put some signs up. And I want to, before I let you into that, when I was coming down the boulevard today, the crews were out patching. Yeah. And you know, we've said this before, we think this Michigan City Street Department and any department has definitely the ability and the talent and the know-how and the equipment to stripe these crossings, put some signs up, and protect our pedestrians so we don't have a third person hurt or killed. But the city was out patching, and this is Saturday. Now, I know they've been working really... Yeah, it's an overtime day. I know we need the potholes fixed, but it's an overtime day.
Yeah.
We're paying, and this is... I'll let you on this one. Cold patch or hot patch, we're paying for overtime on the boulevard. So I wonder if you get that one. On the boulevard. So the boulevard, that section is like
Phase
what?
2, that's...
No, that section, I was on the first phase.
Oh, Overly section.
That's what,
phase
7
1.
years old?
Yeah, about that.
So it lasted 7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
That's the same thing I told the residents of Village Green when I was on the council.
7 years.
They wanted all their streets repaved, and I
Yes,
said,
you
the
did.
city owes you concrete, which lasts 30 years. Don't accept asphalt. 7 years, and we'll be repaving again. Well, they have asphalts. Beautiful today. I was just out there.
And what was the boulevard today? Or the past? When they first did the boulevard, it was concrete. The boulevard was originally concrete all the way through. State Highway did concrete, and that lasted for decades.
Oh, concrete is the best material. It used to be substantially more expensive than asphalt, but as conditions change,
it's comparable now.
It's comparable,
especially with the length.
Well, you know, Tony, I'd like to diverge back to what you started talking about for just a minute. Safety. We started talking about safety after the little girl was hit and killed by a vehicle, and then within weeks later, another child was hit, fortunately not killed, and this was in school areas. But all around this city, we need to focus in on pedestrian safety. We don't have enough sidewalks south of 20 on Franklin Street. We have people walking along the street. In winter, walking through mounded snow that gets crusty and slippery. They could easily slip and fall into a lane of traffic. The other night, I was driving home from a Great Lakers meeting on 20 going east, and there were two guys that were walking right down the center of the highway on the center lane. Now, I don't know why. To me, the snow's been gone for a while, and it's awfully soupy and muddy now. But where I'm going with this is the excuse that's given too often is, well, Highway 20 belongs to the state. Highway 35, Michigan Street Extended, belongs to the state. Well, even if it's a state-controlled highway, when it runs through a city, the city has a moral and ethical obligation to protect its people because it owns a property on each side of that state-owned and controlled highway. And we have too much area along Highway 20 and Highway 421 and 12 that do not have sidewalks for pedestrians. We don't need sidewalks on both sides. There's so many streets in Michigan City that have a sidewalk on each side. You don't need that. The purpose of a sidewalk is to be able to traverse along that street on foot.
A pedestrian corridor.
A pedestrian corridor. Stay out of harm's way. You don't need one on each side. So let's start putting sidewalks on one side, a nice wide sidewalk, and we'll be able to, for the same amount of money that we've been spending, put in twice as much sidewalk.
Well, I'm kind of on board, and we know, and it's a good point to bring up. Where is that? Highway 421 south of 20 is the Indiana Department of Transportation. And last I recall is the city is working on putting sidewalks and other infrastructure there, but I was
north of 400, Deeper Road.
Yeah, but I was not very happy because the talk was to narrow 421. Anyone who's been on 421 south of 20 knows it is used almost to the maximum. If we're going to go in there and work with NDOT and spend some of our money to narrow those roadways, what a disaster that will become. Now, I think we could put a sidewalk on 421, that corridor. I think there's enough right-of-way to add a sidewalk, probably on the east side of the road, right along the right-of-way. We don't need to go in there and start narrowing down lanes. And my understanding
So
that's the plan. The plan is to narrow
the road to allow a sidewalk.
Pedestrian, sidewalk, and bicyclists. A bike lane and a sidewalk lane. And cut off access to some areas, or limit access to some areas so there's less traffic and accidents at intersections. I think 421 south of 20 needs to be left alone. You can add a sidewalk.
You know, you mentioned that. It gave me a funny thought that I have a bike. I love riding it just like anyone else. I ride it a lot of times rather than drive a car. But the thought of a relaxing bike ride on Franklin Street or 421, whatever you want to call it, south of Highway 20, the only person I can think that might be relaxing to is an adrenaline junkie. It's certainly not going to be relaxing to me. You know, we've got all these projects going on around Michigan City, the Singing Sands Trail, the Calumet Trail, that's
never-ending bucket of money.
Yeah, never-ending whirlpool of money that is supposed to be relaxing, where people can walk and jog and ride their bikes. But we don't need a bike lane everywhere. Didn't the city take away some of the parallel parking for vehicles?
Nearly all of it
on the boulevard?
Yep.
For a bike lane?
Yep.
Now, what does that do for the merchants there?
Yep.
We're trying to economically renovate that area, and we take away all the parking for merchants.
What, you don't take your bike and go shopping with 10 bags of groceries on the back and ride home?
That might be something I want to try. I don't know.
Adrenaline junkie.
No, yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. We did this on the boulevard. Again, we don't have to say that, you know, we think this is what's going to happen. We know. We did this on the boulevard. I drive the boulevard a lot. I see bicyclists, a few, maybe let me count on both my hands, maybe 10 bicyclists on the boulevard. They're riding on the sidewalk. They're not riding in the bicycle lane right next to traffic, like you said. That adrenaline junkie might like it. They're not riding a bicycle 10 miles an hour next to, let's admit, 40 mile an hour on the boulevard. They're riding their bike on the sidewalk.
Well,
so is that what we're going to do on the 421? Real smart.
You know, this may sound unacceptable by today's standards of planners, city planners and things, but when I was a kid, we all rode our bicycles on the sidewalk. We didn't ride them in the street. We did occasionally, but it was 50-50.
Yeah.
If there was a sidewalk there,
you
rode on the sidewalk.
Going over.
And if somebody came walking the other way, you got over to one side. It wasn't where everybody had to have their own designated path to travel. Bikes had to stay here. Walkers had to stay here. Joggers had to stay here.
And you were old school, because when you go on the bike, and we all know this because I did too. When you get your bicycle up over that curb to get on the sidewalk, there were no handicap ramps back then.
No,
you hit that curb,
you jumped it up.
No, but, you know, we want to hit safety again. We said we're going to bring it up. We're going to bring it up every time. I don't want to see a report from the committee. I don't want to see another appropriation to the council for $1 million and some engineering plans.
From Illinois companies.
Yeah, from an Illinois company.
Someone 1,000 miles away. You know, there's so many barbs on this issue that we've got to control ourselves talking about them, because talking about this whole thing of planning, and Tony mentioned narrowing Franklin Street south of 20 to create a bike lane. I'll go back to my first year on the council when I was thirsty for knowledge, having never been in public service before, and I pulled out in the planning department that has since then been discarded. There was a fair amount of house cleaning done when one of the employees that was a long-time Michigan City person, Chris Grohl, I think was his name.
Don't know.
He really had his act together. Chris is a sharp guy. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden he was gone. He worked extensively on the Danny Bruce Memorial upgrade. I think there was a little personality clash there, and all of his files went too, though, and they were invaluable. I looked at a study that was done in the 60s by a municipal planner out of Chicago that said that by the year 1990, they projected Michigan City would be 80,000, which never happened. But they also said, which has happened, Franklin Street will be overloaded. It will not be able to handle the traffic at that time. And they said, you need to develop alternate routes. That they suggested Ohio Street on the west and Woodland Ave on the east. Run them all the way from the south end of town, all the way up as close as they could get to the lakefront. 2 lanes each way, 4-lane streets. Now, if that had been done, we wouldn't be where we are today. And then to help with the east-west traffic, to take it off of 20 on the south and 12 on the north, that Greenwood Ave should be run entire 4 lanes all the way through town from east to west. Now, I've said this before, and granted, these are city-controlled and owned streets, but when you have, we need some cooperation between city, county, and state on these projects. I don't see why that's not possible. Take a look at Michigan City as a whole. We meet with the county, we're part of LaPorte County, we meet with the state, and then control a project on South Franklin, work it in coordination with development projects on other streets, so that the bottom line benefit is, wow, you just say, wow, look at what's been done.
Well, it can't happen when different administrations come in and say we're going our own way. We're not going to be part of the LaPorte County regional plan. We're with the city of LaPorte, county of LaPorte, Michigan City. We're doing our own thing. We're going to have our own economic development. We're not going to be part of the LaPorte County MS4 district. We're doing it our own. That's what happens. People do their own thing and go their own way, and there goes your partnership.
Whatever causes that, egos, attitudes, it's not in the best interest of any entity. Michigan City, LaPorte County, state of Indiana, when cities, counties, and the state can't sit down and work together.
I mean, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe this is the plan, and I hate to say it, that we constrict 421 to force people over to Ohio and Cleveland's been, by all economic accounts, an abysmal failure. Nothing on Cleveland. Well, the Haskell building. So maybe you make 421 so bad that people go over to Cleveland.
Is Cleveland really the best route to run north-south?
They don't care. They already built it. We spent millions of dollars.
Right.
We repaid it 3 times.
You're right. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is the philosophy that was expressed in this plan, Cleveland stops at Gardena Playground.
Mm-hmm. Well, starts at the cemetery. Then they go pick up
then
again,
it jumps up and it stops at the boulevard.
tracks.
Yeah. What street? Well, there's several streets that stop at Gardena Playground. But Woodland also already goes out to 400 North and runs all the way through. North of the boulevard, all the way up to Springland Ave.
Yes, Woodland.
Woodland would have been the best street to develop.
It turns into a county road.
Yeah.
South of 20.
Woodland
goes all the way to 400.
Woodland is at the same level of development between 20 and 400 as Cleveland is. Nothing.
Yeah, there's
open field.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's a tiny little 2-lane county road that they struggle to keep the pavement on because the ditches are pretty deep next to it. South of Paz.
I don't understand it.
Okay, so that's our safety. We're still on safety. We're not going to give up on safety. We will bring kudos to every degree, if we see an administration who is bent on getting the crossings paved and the signs put up. Not a difficult task. Our city people can handle it. They are very talented. But we don't.
Until that happens, we're not going to back off.
An engineering plan, and we'll talk about another year, another 2, whatever. Okay. Anyways, we want to get back. We want to get to the main crux here. The Indiana Supreme Court said the beach below the high water mark is for everyone. Pretty nice, isn't it?
Yes, we're a beachfront community.
So
We're a destination location. Everybody talks about the great lake is our greatest asset. So let's let the property owners along the lake, and I know the people who own the $1 million houses in Long Beach will hate me for saying this, but let's take away that access to the beach so that only the residents can enjoy it.
and I've said this several times. The beach is a jewel that Michigan City has that we have not destroyed yet. New Buffalo had a great beach, put a bunch of condos up, restricted it, narrowed it down. When I was a kid, we'd go to New Buffalo. Now there's hardly nothing left of it. Michigan City has got a glorious, unbelievable beach. It's worldwide known. It's unbelievable. Sand, singing sand.
Singing sands.
It's unbelievable. So let's digress a little bit. The Supreme Court got caught in, forgive me if I'm wrong, but so I remember how long, maybe we were back yet or not from, lots of things happened on the beach in Long Beach, and everyone knows that. You know, kids would go out there and they would have campfires, and lots of people would stay. You know, they'd come to Lake Michigan, they'd stay on the beach, they would stay in Long Beach, and they would be on the beach all night. Sometimes, you know, Friday night, Saturday night, and they'd leave on Sunday. You know, it was getting a little out of control out there, and supposedly, you know, there was a group of young adults. We're talking 18 to 30, got in a fight. The one guy punched the other guy, killed him.
Yeah.
Hence the discussion of the beach, in my mind. And that's what broke the discussion. So somebody got killed.
And the guy that delivered the punch was the son of somebody that...
I don't remember. But somebody, you know...
Yeah, wealthy Chicago person.
Yeah, if that was your property and you looked out the beach... and all of a sudden some party happens and a bonfire and somebody gets killed, what is your exposure or liability? Is that your property that you are liable for? Is your insurance going to cover that? Were they on your property? Should you have done something about it? You shouldn't have allowed them. So that kind of started the whole who gets on the beach. Then you call the police. Well, the police aren't going to police private property. Are they policing public property? Are they policing state land? Is this the state of Indiana? Is this the town of Long Beach? Is this the Coast Guard? Or who is this? You have a jurisdictional issue. So, and they had some owners. This was Gunderson on this court case. And so Long Beach and Gunderson, I guess, didn't see eye to eye. And they started talking about who and what use can you do for the beach. Michigan went to the Michigan Supreme Court. A lady was sued, and she said she had the right to walk on the beach. I guess she used to walk on the beach up in Michigan. And that's not too far from us. That line's right there. Said she sued because she got to walk on the beach, and the owner said, no, this is a private beach. You can't walk along here. You can't walk on the shore. Get out of here. Tried to arrest her, trespassing. Went all the way to Michigan Supreme Court, and their decision was the beach is public domain, public property, and I believe the judge said, I can only adjudicate the course you brought in front of me. So the case was, can I walk on the beach? He said, yes, you can walk on the beach. It's public grounds, public domain. If you had brought a court case to this court, we would have said, you have the right to sit on the beach too. It's public property, it's public domain, to the ordinary high water mark. So this went through, can't remember, went through Stallbrink's court, Superior Court, don't remember which one he is. I think first it went to Circuit Court, Alavisos. I think it went to Stallbrink.
Yeah,
went to
Alavisos made the first decision.
It went to the Court of Appeals. It went to the State Supreme Court. They announced on February 24th or something like that. They made it February 14th. They announced a decision, and I understand it might be going to the U.S. Supreme Court since this is the Great Lakes. Now, there's a lot of court law and precedent on lakes, rivers, and streams. and oceans. But this is a Great Lake. This is different kind of animal. That's why it's going through all the courts. This is a Great Lake where we have multiple states, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan. They're all want to know. Pennsylvania, any state that borders a Great Lake, they want to know. So the court, and I brought the whole case. I usually don't print this out. It's that important. It's 29 pages of the court. There is discussion and decision. The article in the Times said that the court guaranteed the right to walk on the beach, and the court said something, and excuse me if I don't get it exactly right, said something about if the legislature would like to expand that right to sitting and sunbathing on the beach, they could do that, but it was not, I don't think that was decided yet. So in here, they go through, and this goes all the way back. This goes to the statehood of Indiana and the statehood of every state. What did the federal government give the states title to then give to somebody to come here and move in and homestead a ground and build on it and enjoy it, its use? That's why this case is so important. There are so many tentacles to this. It's really interesting. And you can go to googlescholar.com and look this case up. You go to the Northwest Indiana Times. They have the link to the PDF. You can print it out. They go back all the way to the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 and equal footing title. So all the states had equal footing when the U.S. gives land to the states to give to private owners to homestead it.
I got a question for you, Tony.
Go ahead.
That made me think of that. All right. This is so far reaching. Here we're talking about residential property ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about the lakefront between the water's edge, right at the NIPSCO Lake Generating Station? Should NIPSCO have established their boundary? That's controlled area. That's a controlled area. Should they have established that boundary at the high water line?
Well, what about the steel mills who filled the whole lake in?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Amoco Oil, right on the lakefront.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is
BP. All the steel mills.
Depends if you have enough money, you want to adjudicate it all the way to the state Supreme Court. Michigan City, I understand, and I used to walk that little walkway by NIPSCO. You know, they closed it off now, right, to that little beach. I understand we're supposed to have some legal easement through there. They're supposed to allow us through there still.
Oh, the West Beach. The West Beach. Yeah.
That used to be the big beach, right? That used to be the beach I ever went to, the West Beach.
Well, that and Mount Baldy.
And Hoosier Slide was over.
Hoosier Slide, yeah. A lot of activity out there.
But, so there's, the crux of this is the ordinary high water mark. Where is it, and what rights do the public has to the beach? The courts looked at this a lot, and I think Long Beach argued, so the Indiana Department of Natural Resources and the United States Army Corps have an elevation that they say they've averaged it out over the years, what Lake Michigan goes up and down, and they say that's the ordinary high water mark, and that's where the lake will rise and fall to over the decades. The court said, I think, my reading of it, the court said no, that's not a number you can use. I think they let some rights use it. They said the ordinary high water mark is where demonstratively where the vegetation and the elevation of the sand change. So when you're out there, it should be pretty obvious. Typically, it's easy for us to look. We look at the garbage cans. They're right there at the back of the beach, right? You don't want them smelling up where you're sunbathing. So they put them back as far as they can by the weeds, right? You go there and the sand goes up and there's dune grass. And
yeah, where the dune grass starts, that would be the...
That's probably the ordinary high water mark.
Yep.
So they're giving us that. The state Supreme Court is giving that. They discussed whether the legislature extinguished the rights under some provisions they passed. They said no. The court said they did not distinguish any rights by any law they passed because they could distinguish the rights. They talked about the Ohio River. That's a huge case in southern Indiana. Kentucky actually goes to the north bank of the Ohio River. So
really?
Yeah. So that was a huge case. We thought Indiana should have access to the thread
What
of
do you have? You have
Ohio.
Wabash along the west boundary, Ohio along the east?
Yeah, so the Ohio, Kentucky is actually the north bank of the Ohio because they were first, I guess. I didn't read that case. So we had a case from private citizens and public use. The Indiana Supreme Court has made its decision, published this decision. If they want to, I guess I'm wrong. It doesn't go to Supreme Court next. It would go to the, what's the courts? Federal appeals courts. They have different appeals courts around the United States. The Ninth Circuit appeal.
Yeah, combine several states.
Yeah, so you had to go to the federal appeals.
Well, it might go that high.
And they would decide whether they... But what's interesting here is the Indiana Supreme Court goes to the Manual of Surveying Instructions. Talks about the original surveying instructions by the federal surveyors that split off all the ground in the United States for homesteading. Pretty amazing. The Bureau of Land Management, the Manual of Surveying Instructions, made it to the Indiana Supreme Court.
Yay, surveyors.
Wow.
That's
intense.
So excited.
So the courts, not just going after legal cases, they're going to the surveying instructions on how a surveyor splits off ground for the public for Indiana could sell to the public or give to the public. So here it is. Note 3, this is page 27 there. Ruling, at a minimum, there's the key, because they talked about it. Walking along the Lake Michigan shore is a protected activity inherent in the exercise of traditional public trust rights. So the lake shore is open for us to walk at a minimum. We could expand that to sunbathing and, I don't know, campfires.
Beach parties?
As long as they were safe and not illegal.
Hey, worked for Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. Beach blanket bingo.
Beach blanket bingo? So what that brings up. Beach blanket bingo.
A lot of teenagers got experience kissing at beach parties, so we really shouldn't stop that. That's tradition.
So what that brings up. I told you this is multifaceted. If you look at the lake shore, and I'm talking mostly Washington Park, and now we're working our way north along Long Beach.
Oh, now we're talking erosion?
Now we're talking erosion and acquiescence. So this court case stemmed from the beach. That stemmed from the ability to have a beach. I mean, you're been around longer than I have up there. I didn't spend that much time in Long Beach. I know a lot of friends did live in Long Beach. That beach was never that big.
I was pretty much of a public beach kid in Michigan City.
How big was that beach when you were teenage years? We're talking up
well,
here.
it was, I want to say...
We're talking Long Beach up there. Up here, what? Stop 20? How much beach was up there?
Well, I wasn't really familiar with that. In Michigan City, between the boardwalk going out to the pier and the water's edge, in the 60s, you probably had a good 100 feet of beach.
So, in my recollection of Long Beach, and we're talking way up north along Long Beach, not much beach.
The same in Beverly
rocky,
Shores. I had a friend in Beverly Shores.
Kind of rocky, not much sandy beach. Now there's hundreds of feet. Lots of place. That's where that court case stemmed from. As the beach got bigger, well, why did the beach get bigger? So, as a surveyor, information's available. I give you this. This is the beacon. You can pull up beacon and look at that. It's pretty neat. And if you look at beacon on the left side at the bottom, you can change years of the photos. You can change how detailed the photos are, so it's really neat to look. So I just printed out for Dwayne there. Can't show it on camera because it's a little too small. The photography we have is so good. You can start seeing swirls of sand in Lake Michigan and how it reacts around the lighthouse. So we had the Mount Baldy, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. The lighthouse is what, 19?
Yeah, I wish this was bigger. I could show it to you. It does show a clearly defined line, which is the beach, and then at water's edge, it looks like in a movie, like a sandstorm kind of
Yes.
and that's all of the movement of the sand under the water.
But there's so much sand you could see it.
Yeah.
So what was it? I think 1908. Historians, please email me. I looked it up. I don't remember. 1908, 1910. We got the lighthouse and the pier and the government pier. So I started, and in my past, I've done a lot of this in NERPC, Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, holds maps. Every year, whether the Army flew them or somebody flew maps, they hold a repository of maps. Now, there is an Indiana historical GIS site. I can't remember what it is, IGS map or something like that. If you look up Indiana historical GIS site, it's put on together. That's Purdue guys. Gotta give them kudos here. Put together by Indiana University. And Indiana University is still looking into, and I understand still looking at Mount Baldy.
Yeah.
So they put out a website, which again you can go to. It's free. You can go. It's really neat. You can see the photo like we see in Beacon, and then in the right you can turn on. You pick the county. You can turn on what year photos you want to look at. So here is 1939. 1939. In there, again, we can't show you these, but in there you'll see there's a very fine line north of the basin. It is very clear. And that's probably just the wall that we walk along, that walkway north of the basin. Very clear. That's all there is in 1939.
Yeah, the breakwater.
There's the breakwater. Yeah, there's the lighthouse
and
and
then
the
we've got the
breakwater
breakwater out in the lake.
So you could see in the 1939, and you're free to go on the website and check this out, you can see very clearly the walkway out to the lighthouse pier. Very clear. And there's nothing else there. It's just a fine, and this is a 1939 photo, so it's not the best. It's kind of like the old war photos. You can see those. Very clear. So and you click on it, it says 1939, it says 9/23/1939. You even know the year and the month and the day. Very clear. Extremely clear what's happening here. And you can also kind of see some of the same, the cloudiness of the sand and the way the lake manipulates the sand. So then you go to 1954. Yes, 1954. You can do a comparative analysis. Now those are different scales, but you can see if you look at just the walkway north of the basin, it's starting to show a little bit more, a little bit of sand, just north of the basin. And you can start seeing more sand in the water. Now we have to be very clear here. If you're going to look at photos and dates, you also have to look at levels of the lake. Did it go up 3 feet? Did it go down 3 feet? Where was the lake when they took the picture? We have a date, so it's easy to correlate those. Then this website lets you go to 1958. It's only 4 years. So 4 years, we went from 39 to 58 to 54 to 58.
Wow.
There's more beach there, very clearly.
A lot
more beach there north of that walkway. Very clear. I don't know if the lake was down in 58 or there was more beach. But so we look at trends. So we start looking at bigger trends. Here is 1965. Must be your heyday.
It was a very good year.
58 to 65.
Yeah,
There's 1965.
Wow, that's a lot of beach.
There is no question. There is probably double, maybe triple the beach in the 58 photo sitting there.
There's so much natural action that people don't think about it. At one year, I forget which one it was that I was on the council, we had to come up with some emergency funds for dredging of the harbor.
Yeah.
Because the previous winter, we didn't have the ice shelf that we do. It was a warm winter. Most winters around here, you drive up by the lake and you can see the ice cap out there. We didn't have that. And if you don't have the ice cap, you have substantially more wave action. You have wave action all winter long that moves the sand. It had moved so much sand into the entrance to the harbor that in spots, the entrance was 4 feet deep. You couldn't get a decent sized watercraft through there. So we had to come up with, I think, a couple $100,000
I remember.
for the Army Corps of Engineers.
Just the
channel coming in on the lake side of the Franklin Street Bridge. It was that area from the lighthouse on in. It had moved so much sand to wave action. It's a never-ending process. And Tony talking about these historical pictures, time-lapse type pictures, when we had the incident of the boy falling in the cavity at Mount Baldy, and people started looking at these pictures, you could see, and we've all heard that Mount Baldy it's wearing away, but it's also migrating to the south to the point where someday it will cover Highway 12 in that area. And you could see in these pictures that they could pinpoint the location where the young boy fell in, and 40, 50 years ago, whatever it was, that location was at the back side of Mount Baldy. Mount Baldy was north of that. That was all woods. And the trees don't move, so as the sand migrated, it completely buried a little forest, a wooded area. The trees couldn't get what they needed to live. They died, the wood rotted, and that gave rise to these pockets that get filled in if the sand is vibrated, which it does gets through normal. That's a benefit of, the only benefit I see of the train traffic. The train traffic, the vibration. Don't get me started on that. That's the only benefit of freight running that close to the lake, is it keeps the sand vibrating and keeps it tightly compacted.
Yeah, you're going right where I want, and that's why it was going to take a while. And I give you this photo. I really apologize. It would be very expensive.
We wish we could show these things because they're really neat.
This photo is, I forget what year this is, 2005, 2016, and you could see the photos are so good. You can see these same photos on Beacon. You zoom in, you could see the sand coming around the lighthouse and the lake actually doing what it wants to do with the sand. And the crux here of my theory, and I've asked IU this, and I'm sure they're looking at this, has the lighthouse pier created a man-made block, have we disrupted the natural work of Lake Michigan by sticking the lighthouse pier out there to protect the mouth of Trail Creek, forcing the sand to pile up behind it?
Yeah.
And
we get a big beach here, we have no beach here.
And if you look at the photos, and we don't have a photo from pre-lighthouse day that's good enough to see the sand action in the water, my guess is, with the lighthouse pier was not there, we're not saying remove it, but when it was not there, and that sand comes down Lake Michigan, runs into the outflow of Trail Creek, it will drop its velocity and the sand will fall out of the ability of the water to hold it suspended. And it would fall out right where Hoosier Slide was. That's why Hoosier Slide was so big. And the next place it would fall out, further west, would be Mount Baldy. If Mount Baldy would be receiving a natural amount of sand, and I didn't realize, because I went to Mount Baldy enough when I was a kid, and I always wondered why the ground underneath the water was so rocky and hard on your feet. It was just, it was a nasty place to be. Yes, it's not fun.
It wasn't all sand, ripply sand like
Washington Park.
Yeah, like Washington Park.
So if the sand would have been allowed, when the lighthouse wasn't there, to drop its suspended sand out of the water and pile up in front of Mount Baldy, would Mount Baldy not move south anymore, because now it has a big pile of sand constantly building in front of it instead of pushing over the top, because the wind's never going to stop.
Well, you know, Tony, when you were talking about that, it popped into my mind. I remember seeing a picture of the original, the first pier going out toward the lighthouse that was built. It was like you see in these California oceanfront communities. It was a wood pier that was suspended on piling. So
the ocean pier, the big one.
Yeah, the sand was the water was able to move underneath the pier, and it could still carry the sand. But once that wooden structure pier, became replaced with a solid concrete pier.
Well, I think it's still underneath it. I still think it's on timbers, but we have big rocks all the way along the
Yeah,
side.
on the east side.
Yeah, man, I used to jump on those rocks all the time. Dangerous and slippery.
Yeah.
They're still there, and
Yeah.
kids still do it. And so those rocks, in this theory discussion we're having, are holding back the sand, because once it fills underneath the rocks, it just starts working its way back up along Washington Park, around Long Beach. And if I remember correctly, and you're going to tell me if I'm wrong, the city expends a lot of money every year because of the sand that blows up on the beach. It's enormous.
Oh, yeah.
The piles of sand that we don't see in summer.
Cover the main parking lot.
Oh, yeah, what we take off the parking lot alone.
Yeah.
So
tons of sand every year.
And didn't we just lower the whole sand dune in front of, like, Stop 2 and dug all that out? Didn't we just do that?
We've done a lot of
those piles
landscaping of the lakefront.
In my understanding, and hopefully somebody could email us or tell us if we're wrong, those piles of sand were not that big, talking Stop 2s further north. They have grown demonstrably in the last 20, 30, 40 years to be huge dunes.
You're talking east of Dunescape.
Dunescape, yeah. Those dunes are enormous. So the sand comes down, hits the lighthouse pier we have, and starts accreting, just kind of growing and backing up along the beach. Because now it's clear. You take the 1938 photo and you take the photo today. This is 65. There's no question. And these photos are bad. I said they're kind of like wartime photos. Their equipment just wasn't that good. You take 1939, 9/23, 1939 against 2016, and these are 3-inch photos. So they're very, very detailed. You can see these on Beacon. There is no question, because we're about what, 40% up that first pier, the first leg of the lighthouse. This one, 0, just a walkway. That's it. That's probably why they poured that sidewalk so wide.
The walkway's clearly defined.
And the walkway is clearly defined here, and that's probably why they built the walkway, because it was all water.
We need that clearly defined walkways right here, like we talked about before.
That would be nice.
We'll have to talk about that again on a future show.
So let me get to
Fetter's Alley, walkway all the way out to the end. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, extend that walkway straight up the beach.
Behind the senior
all
center.
the way up there.
Wow.
Movable, wood, just like Atlantic City, right? Or just like the Jersey Shore.
We would truly have a great beach then.
Oh, you could sell...
Because this part of the beach sees very little action.
Yeah, you could sell food and popcorn and pop and pizza and ice cream. Oh, the vendors would be tremendous. Oh, our parking lot wouldn't be a spit the size it needs to be. You wouldn't know what to do. Maybe that's why we don't do it. But anyways, we like our little secret beach, don't we? But anyways, so here's the theory is the lighthouse put in there. It started backing sand up. It took sand away from Hoosier Slide, and it took away sand from Mount Baldy.
Yep.
So you got your Mount Baldy.
200,000.
200,000.
We'll open up Mount Baldy.
Open up Mount Baldy.
Get it growing again.
So Mount Baldy.
We really used to have some neat things. Hoosier Slide, if you look at some old pictures, it was really neat.
I wish I would be able to see it. It looks like it was unbelievable.
Well, it was way before my time. It was in the 30s and 40s. But
it was way bigger than Mount Baldy, right?
Yeah.
Because
it dwarfed Mount Baldy. It was.
You can't show it, but because here is NIPSCO, and here's all the sand coming off the creek, and it would have just started piling up here naturally. Mother Nature would have piled it up and piled it up and piled it up. As soon as that sand comes across the Trail Creek, it's no longer suspended. It falls out. It blows up on the shore. That's the way Mother Nature works.
Yep.
And we built the lighthouse. Well, the federal government built the lighthouse.
That's what the gold miners do.
Yeah.
They pan right at the bottom of a rapids. That rapids will tumble that gold, and it was a rapid stop, and the water velocity slows down.
Yep.
That gold's too heavy, and it settles down right.
Drops right out.
I've tried it.
I tried it. It's pretty cool. I've been trying some of the local little streams. We did it up in,
and
you can go take a pan at one of the county parks and just
gold fever.
You see some black sand, and you see a couple little gold flakes. It's kind of pretty cool. So we went from an Indiana Supreme Court. We have Mount Baldy, which is shut down. Now, my theory on Mount Baldy, maybe we shouldn't have shut it down because that vibrated action of kids and adults climbing up the side of it filled those voids in every day, every hour, and there were no voids or hollow places where the trees were under because they constantly vibrated and filled up.
Yeah.
Now, that did pull the dune south further faster. I don't think much, honestly. I think the wind,
it's a natural
the wind does it way more than we
yeah.
can do it, and it will continue to do it because we've taken away the food of Mount Baldy by stopping the sand at the lighthouse. So it's stopped, and it's not, Mount Baldy's not getting fed new sand every year. And as a kid, I know
There's nothing to fill in behind the action of the wind.
and we know it's
The
true.
wind's moving the sand, and there's nothing
Yeah, nothing like it's like
to replenish that
a
sand.
snow fence.
Yeah.
There's no snow fence there. That dune was a snow fence for the top of Mount Baldy, and it just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's never going to stop. We're never going to stop that. But when you go down to Mount Baldy, you go in the lake, and you walk around the bottom, it's real rocky and jaggedy, and it's not nice because there's no sand.
Yeah.
The sand has been taken away.
There's clay and rocks.
There's clay and rocks, and the
Several
waves are just doing what they naturally do. They just keep cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and pushing, and all the sand's gone. And there's no food for it anymore. The sand's gone. And we see that working because I looked at some old Sanborn maps. And again, you go online. I think Indiana Historical something has old Sanborn maps, and you can kind of click on where you want to see a Sanborn. A Sanborn map was made for firefighters, so they got a call, and they didn't have GIS like they have. So they got a call and said, "Okay, we're going to whatever Jackson Street, 1010 Jackson Street, and what kind of house is it? There's a fire there. We got to be ready. Is it brick? Is it brick fascia? Is it
Wood frame
just
construction.
wood frame?
Yeah.
Is it concrete? What kind of house are we going to? What are we in for? And will this spread to the next house? So the next house is wood frame. Will it catch fire? So Sanborn as a company, they're still alive today. Those are still maps that are done today. Tell you what kind of structure that is. So the firefighters are ready to go there. So Sanborn, they have some maps online from the Sanborn company, old maps. And the map I saw didn't show, I can't remember what road that is on stop 2, the last road by the street. It didn't show that road. Because if I can digress to the Indiana Supreme Court case in the lakefront, as county surveyor, they asked me, what did the section look like when the original surveyor came here in 1838? When they came here and they got to Lake Michigan, they said, okay, here's the lake, here's the edge of the shore, here's the sand and the beach dune grass, and this is the end of where we're going to stop surveying. And they tell us, how many feet they went and how many feet they went, and they kind of traced the shore, and they made a map. And they turned it into the federal government, and the federal government said, here, Indiana, here's the land we are giving you as a state, so you can give it to a private citizen to homestead it or make a public road or whatever you need to do. That map was asked for in this case. And we take, pretty simple, this isn't it. But
What street were you talking about? What is now Lakeshore Drive?
No. There's Lakeshore Drive, there's one north. Goes right along, stop 2, stop 3. Man, I can't think of the street name. So that street was not on the Sanborn map, which was very interesting to me. So these are good map makers, and they are very good map makers today. And that was their whole career and their whole business. That map did not show up on Colfax. Colfax did not show up on their fire map. Was really, you can look them up. You click on, you can see the Sanborn map, and there's the homes. Oh, there's Lakeshore Drive, homes, and then beach. And now we got Colfax. Very interesting. So the federal government sent surveyors out to mark off the sections and the homestead and give the state of Indiana. The map that was made for the Supreme Court case by the county surveyor's office, by me, easy. We take these maps, and we take the beacon map, and we put the sections on there and we draw. It is what it is. The maps are very clear. They give me the distance over. They kind of show the beach and the lake. There's no bones about it. The distance is the distance. We still know the county surveyor is charged with the section corners, to make sure each one's there where they're put in 1838. They're still there, and they're still the same place, right, wrong, or different. They're still there. Everyone uses them, so we know where they are. We know the maps are good, and then create a map. That line that the original surveyor showed, and that's part of this case, and I think you can even look up the Indiana Appeals Court and see the map. That line was about on Lakeshore Drive. So, have we accreted...
Well, you know, the names of the roads have changed too. I've been asked about several, since working in the surveyor's department, I've been asked about several maps of the Long Beach area, and I was confused when I first saw that Lakeshore Drive hasn't always been Lakeshore Drive. It was originally Armitage Ave.
Yes.
And I've never heard of Armitage outside of a street in Chicago, Armitage, which is probably an indication of the influence that Chicago's always had on this area.
Well, to go a little bit further, in this case, and they didn't discuss it a lot, well, Andy's given us 2 minutes. In this case, when it all started, they started researching like you do at the surveyor's office. They got records from day one in the county. They're actually all scanned, they're digital. So we were looking at something else, and some attorney asked me, I don't remember who, maybe I do, I just can't say. They're asking, what did I know about Long Beach? And this was just when the infancy was started. And they said, what do you know about Long Beach? I said, well, there's a Long Beach plat, you know, with Armitage Road, and name change, and it shows lots. Well, they said, well, you know, if you look before Long Beach, there was a plat called Shahawala. And they had the original homesteader had split it off between family, and the road was down on the beach. There was a public road down on the beach, but the lake came up and it got so wet, they moved the road up to
further away.
They moved it up to the top of the dune because they didn't, you know, getting flooded out. So Andy's showing us
That's
like a couple minutes.
Well, we're going to have to postpone our discussion. We've got a minute left now. We're going to have to postpone our discussion of the new Crown Point Police Station. We kind of want to talk about that.
Oh yeah, you could tease them with that.
Why has Crown Point been able to build a complete facility, police station, city hall, for what, $8 million, something like that?
$11 million.
11 in our
City Hall and police station.
And ours was 14. And before that, Lake Station built a new community facility, city hall, courts, police station for $8.5 million. And again, ours was 14. Is it because we have a riverboat? We have resources that they don't? Who knows? But we'll talk about that next week.
That's a good one. And then quickly, a couple seconds we've got left. I want to go over my list of results that we haven't seen. Again, pedestrian crossings. How can we spend more money in education? And I'll leave it here. Is why don't we have a water park like Whiting does? Closing comments. You want like a couple seconds?
You've covered it.
See you
That's
next
fine.
week.
Thanks for being with us.
And we always enjoy being here.